Let's see. I believe we are live. Yes, grace and peace, family. Grace and peace. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. My At Hotel. Namaste. Free the land, family. Thank you so much for tuning in to my own personal channel here at the Vicki Dillard.tv. That's Vicki Dillard.tv. Dear family, we are so excited about our absolutely beautiful guest. Many of you already can see who we have with us today. I'm going to do a very brief, informal intro here in just a moment, but you all know, those of you that tune in on a regular basis, I have a little bit of a ritual here. Beloved, that as you come in, be sure to come in giving us a big thumbs up, thumbs up. Be sure to like and be sure to share the broadcast, family. We ask that you do that early on because it affects the algorithm and essentially helps to generate, allegedly, notifications. I know many of you all tell me I'm shadow banned and you can't see me. I've had this issue since I've been on other multiple platforms that I've helped to build and grow and bring credibility to over the years. If you, those of you that have been looking for me on those platforms, because that's who I used to give all my time and magic to until I started to give my own over the past year or so, let everybody know they can find me here at VickiDillard.tv. Yes, of course, you'll still see me on the other important platforms like African Diaspora News Channel and other social media platforms. But if they want to see me live on a weekly basis here, let them know VickiDillard.tv. So on the count of three, if you haven't, family, hit that thumbs up button and share. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so that we can go right into our very important conversation. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Thumbs up. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Share, 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 share. Okay, dear family, you all, I want to get started here with a very brief intro of our beautiful guest that we're again so very pleased to have joined us today here on the platform. And family, we are with, and I just wanted to actually quote from your bio here, very beautiful bio, by the way. Our dear sister, Dr. Melina Abdullah, PhD. She is a professor of Pan-African Studies at California State University, Los Angeles, co-founder of Black Lives Matter, Los Angeles and Black Lives Matter Grassroots, where it says here she is director. She's chair and counsel of the Racial and Social Justice California Faculty Association in LA. It says her faculty union, and mama of three. I love that. 2004, of course, independent candidate for vice president of the United States, running with Dr. Cornel West. Of course, she's that and so much more, as many of you probably already will surmise, family. Let's give her a very warm welcome here at VickiDillard.tv. Dr. Melina Abdullah, thank you so much for joining us here today. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. What a great energy to wake up to. Blessed to be joining you. Salam alaikum. Really appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am. Walaikum salam. It's interesting because I honestly didn't know a whole lot about you. Certainly, I have seen and heard about you at a distance in the line of work that I do. Obviously, your name will pop up from time to time, probably mostly within the context of Black Lives Matter. I was looking at a piece of you recently. Unfortunately, this was I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, a clip of you being and you can correct me if I have the facts wrong, actually fill in the blanks if you like, of being thrown out, literally physically removed from, was it a mayoral debate or something? Yeah. Okay. And that's when you were talking about the how they had you your legs were open. You were talking about being a Muslim woman and the humiliation that they that engendered for you. And I was thinking about that clip of you from a few years ago that I saw. It was actually a news segment that I was watching. And then I started to think about the tactics of the Democratic Party suing to kick off folks like your running mate, Dr. Cornel West. You were, of course, running as independent in this. you both were running as independent in this race, as well as, of course, she was suing Robert F. Kennedy when he was in the race for presidency, and the other third party candidates. And I want you, if you would, speak to a little bit of that, because I thought that the Democrats were supposed to represent the people, the average person. I thought they were supposed to be the party of freedom, freedom of speech. The Democrat Party, we know there's a capital D and a small d, Democrat. What about that? What about that reminded me of course, it's about your mayoral race, but when I saw them physically remove you, I started to think about the tactics of the Democrat Party to silence folks, even in the DNC. And even when it comes down to, again, folks like your running mate, Dr. Cornel West, and your campaign to silence you, to prevent the people from even knowing who you are and what you stand for. Start wherever you like, but I would certainly like for you to speak on that, would you?
Sure. So that's a huge question, and I'll start where you started with what happened to me in 2022. And I appreciate you for kind of making those connections. So I'm an organizer with Black Lives Matter Grassroots, which is the boots on the ground of Black Lives Matter, right? We don't have the money, but we have the people power. And this is really every part of the question that you asked, right? That we believe that people power overcomes money power every day of the week. People power can defeat evil. People power is fueled by our most righteous warrior ancestors. It's fueled by our creator. People power is the power that will get us through this next 4 years under Donald Trump and has defeated evil everywhere we've seen it. It's people power, and fueled, of course, by ancestors and God that have freed us from chattel slavery, that have won the first anti-lynching era, that have ushered us through civil rights and Black power and usher us into this moment. And so organizing with Black Lives Matter Grassroots, I'm one of the original members of Black Lives Matter, has really been about standing up. And I feel that, you know, some people say, oh, it's your job. It's not my job. My job is actually, what pays me is I'm a professor of Pan-African Studies at Cal State LA. But the work that I do in organizing is my calling. I believe it's my duty to stand up. I'm a mama. I have 3 children. You know, they're old now. They're 28 and 14.
Wow.
I can't leave a world for them like the world that we have right now. So it's my duty to my mama and my grandma and, you know, all of those who came before me, as well as the generations to come. And so I've been an organizer in Los Angeles. I have a pretty solid reputation as an organizer, more known here because this is where I do most of my organizing work than I am around the country. So in 2022, there was a mayoral race, and there was a debate happening on the campus that I teach on, Cal State LA. I've been teaching there for 22 years.
Wow.
So I'm one of the most senior Black faculty members on the campus, and I teach Black studies or Pan-African studies, but my formal training is my PhD is in political science.
Got it.
So I'm very interested in Black political power. This was the first time that we had a Black woman candidate who was viable running for mayor of Los Angeles. I'm teaching a class called Black Power. I invite my class, of course, this is happening on my campus. My class should come watch this debate. We get there, we're told just show up, and the powers that be, the white men who ran the center that was hosting the debate, blocked my students from entry. So I've been there 22 years. I know every way to get into every building, right? I don't have to break in. I know there's a back door. So I just walked in the back door, right? The room where the debate was happening was almost completely empty. It holds 200 people. And there were maybe 10 folks in there. So plenty of seating. I walked in with a colleague from another campus, and we sit down and we're waiting for the debate to start. Next thing you know, the director of that center comes over to me, white man, comes over to me. I've known him for 25 years.
Wow.
Before I've known him since I was a grad student. He comes over to me and he says, this is a ticketed event. So, it's COVID. I had on a mask, pulled down my mask. I said, oh, it's me, Rafe. His name is Rafe Shonenshine, right? And he doesn't say anything and he leaves. Then he comes back with police. And the debate's about to start. And I said, I teach here. What are you talking about? So there's this back and forth. And next thing you know, the police, campus police, have me, armed campus police, drag me down the aisle. And I like to think I'm young, but I'm not, right? Have me, this is the last day of Ramadan. Stretch me by all fours, one on each arm, one on each leg, and carry me not only through that theater, but through the entire building, spreading. Wow. And I still have a shoulder injury as a result of it. I was, it's not something that my then 49-year-old body was accustomed to. Wow. And thankfully, there were students and community members outside who could see through the building and saw what was happening as the police were trying to load me into a police car, and the community came and unarrested me, demanded that the police put me down. I wound up being injured. Some of the people there, including students, wound up being injured. But this is the way, and I know it's a long story, but this is the way that Black protest is treated. And I think those of us who dare to open our mouths, and I consider myself not just a Black woman, but a loudmouth Black woman, right?
Yes.
Loudmouth Black women are treated with disdain.
Yes.
And, they are abused. We've always been abused.
Yes.
And that's what continues to happen, especially when we fast forward to this 2024 presidential election. You had two loudmouth Black people, Dr. Cornel West, who is the smartest man on the face of the earth, right? Who is absolutely for our people, coupled with a loudmouth Black woman, both in spiritual traditions, running on a platform of truth, justice, and love, and really revealing the evils that must be beaten back in this world. And the Democratic Party, as well as the Republican Party, didn't like that. So they used every tool in their arsenal, especially the many millions and even billions of dollars. They spent billions of dollars on this election, but we know for a fact that the Democratic Party spent at least $22 million to keep Dr. West and me from appearing on ballots, or for preventing people from being able to vote for us in states, even states like Georgia, where we did appear on the ballot. They actually tried to and succeeded in invalidating those votes.
Wow. Dear family, Instagram, I am here live on my channel at VickiDillard.tv on YouTube. I want to invite you to come over. You see, certainly, my illustrious guest on the screen live, Dr. Melina Abdullah. She was the vice presidential running mate, Dr. Cornel West, independent. This beautiful sister is with us now. VickiDillard.tv, come on over. We are discussing, among other things, the Democratic Party's machinations to prevent, to silence, and frustrate the voice of Black women, those whom they care about. allegedly,
Mm.
as well as we're getting ready to get into other discussions, including but not limited to reparations, the deep state, and some other stuff. So you don't want to miss this. So come on over now, briefly within the hour, family. You got a few minutes to get here. VickiDillard.tv. Of course, I want you to come on over because this is going to be in connection with my upcoming webinar that I have coming up free this Sunday. Beloved, we're going to be connecting the dots. I'm going to be connecting the dots about the spiritual dark forces used in the presidential election with Trump and Kamala Harris campaigns and what that means for us spiritually. So you don't want to miss that. For those of you that is watching on Instagram, the link in the bio is above to register for free. Come on over now. We are live. I look forward to seeing you Instagram here in just a moment. Thank you for letting me do that very quickly. I wanted to bring that up in particular because you are a Black woman, it appears. And you said that you are a loud Black woman. And you gave us this history. And I've seen actual footage of you being physically assaulted, disrespected. Some would even say assaulted. You were injured, certainly, for protesting. I'm thinking about all of the stuff that, in particular, the Democrats in both sides are equally terrible. But I put an emphasis on the Democrat Party because we know overwhelmingly our people vote for them and have done so for many, many decades, generations even. And when you give a party power to change your condition and they use that power to help everybody else, that's the party that we must disproportionately give accountability to, hold accountable. So this is my point of bringing them up in particular, but we certainly won't leave off the others. I want you, if you would, to talk to me. You and I didn't talk prior to today's interview, and sometimes I like it that way so that things are organic and there's a flow to it. When I'm watching some of the legacy establishment media voices, and then I think about even what you just said now and the specific attempts that the Democrat Party in particular made, $22 million in court they spent to prevent you all from appearing on the ballots. They say they value the voices of their most loyal voting bloc and constituency, and they really put an emphasis on Black women and the sorority sisters and stuff. And you're a Black woman, and we didn't see you in very many debates. There were fights to keep you off, including the Republicans fighting to keep you off. You talked about $22 million that the Democrats spent in court. And I need us to really think about this, dear family. Those of you that justified the antics with the Democrat Party when we were called it out, and some of you, instead of you using your brain, and as I always say here, thinking is new for some people. Somebody put a turtle in the chat, and somebody put, one of the thinking cloud emojis in the chat, please. And then I get to thinking about who the Democrat Party, some of us believe, just, coordinated and put in that position. What are your thoughts about this Kamala Harris being made the candidate? They came up with all kinds of justifications on why they did not do a proper primary on that. Again, you and I have not talked about this. What are your thoughts about the way in which the Democrat Party, after Joe Biden announced that he would not be running, moved with this issue of putting Kamala Harris in place, and we didn't see others really given an opportunity to run?
Sure. Well, I think that the Democratic Party, and I do believe our people are beginning to open our eyes about the how undemocratic this two-party system, this duopoly is, right? That this is a corporate-owned duopoly. That even though they benefit from Black support, and Black women voted for Kamala Harris upwards of 90%, right? Upwards of 90%. And even though they berated and condemned Black men, Black men were the second largest support group for Kamala Harris, right?
Absolutely.
So even though we voted for her, right? Even though they rely on us and always rely on us for their base of support, who they're really owned by and beholden to is white supremacist capitalism, right?
Come
Where
on.
do they get their money from? You know,
Mm.
Kamala Harris herself took $5.5 million in donations from AIPAC.
Come
And
on.
I hope your viewers know that that's the American Israeli Political Action Committee. That is, you know, the forces that are carrying out the genocide in Israel, and forces that also condemn, again, authentic Black voices here in the United States and around the world. She took $5.5 million in AIPAC money. We
Come on.
should know that she takes and where the Democratic Party, they always talk about how the Republican Party and how Donald Trump got all this money from Elon Musk. Well, we got to remember that the Democratic Party is also taking corporate money. They're taking money from arms corporations. They're taking money from all of these other entities whose interests are fundamentally opposed
Come
to
on.
Black people. They're taking money. There's a reason that the Democrats, when Kamala Harris was asked, would she support a $15 an hour federal minimum wage? Now, we've done our due diligence, we've done our research. In order to survive and have a livable wage in this country, we need a $27 an hour federal minimum,
Come on.
right? When Kamala Harris was asked, would she support just a $15 an hour minimum wage, she would not. Well,
Mm.
why is that? It's because the funding for the Democratic Party and her campaign is paid for by the ownership class, not the working class.
Come
And
on.
so, you know, there might be this lip service paid to the middle class, but middle class means nothing,
Come
right?
on.
We need to talk about the working class and the poor. We need to be talking about where most Black people stand, which is that we need livable wage jobs. We need guaranteed housing. We need reparations. We're not even running the race from the same starting point because we never got reparations. And I mean real reparations that comes with a check, that starts with a check and includes other institutional changes as well. And so the Democratic Party, as well as the Republican Party, relies on there just being a duopoly that gives the illusion of choice.
Delusion.
You're told you have a choice between Donald Trump or Joe Biden, and then you're supposed to celebrate when they replace Joe Biden with Kamala Harris, who is just a Black face in many ways. She's a Black face on white supremacy because the agenda that she's carrying is a white supremacist agenda. So it doesn't matter to me. And Sister Vicki, I didn't share with you, she's not the only Black woman who was on the ticket to graduate from Howard University. I'm a bison.
Wait. Hold on. You're going too fast. Family. I was called a hater, Dr. Abdullah. You're sitting here breaking this down real good for us right now. Did you say she's not the only one that graduated from Howard? Would you please say that again, ma'am, real slow for the audience?
Wait, I'm going to say more than that. Watch this.
Uh-oh.
So we both went to Howard. I'm a bison. I graduated class of 94, right? HU, you know, right?
Right now.
I pledged Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. We are both from Oakland. Although I don't know nobody who knows her from Oakland, but I'm from the
Oh,
Lord. We got all these commonalities. You would think that I would be celebrating her. But we got to remember that we should vote for the people who have allegiance to the people. It doesn't matter what boxes she ticks off. Great. It felt good to see a Black woman. She's the first presidential candidate who had a little rhythm, right? Even Barack Obama didn't really have no rhythm. Michelle did, but Barack didn't, right?
Come on.
It felt good to see somebody with a little rhythm. It felt good for me to see somebody who looks like me, right? That felt good, but I'm not gonna vote based on vibes. I like Beyonce, but Beyonce doesn't win my vote, right?
That's right.
What do you have planned for our people? And so there was the illusion of choice. There was the illusion that, you know, you have a choice between a Donald Trump and a Kamala Harris, and these are different worlds and different plans, but really it's the same plan. It's the same no housing. It's the same no reparations. It's the same endless war. It's the same trillions of dollars given to the Pentagon with no accountability. And Sister Vicki, I don't know if you saw the latest, but the Pentagon, which has a multi-trillion-dollar budget every year.
Yes, ma'am.
Just failed its audit again.
Ma'am,
so
this is my...
There are hundreds of billions of dollars unaccounted for. There you go. There we go.
That's an Instagram post.
Yes.
From a couple of days ago.
That's right. That's right, Sister Vicki. So that's what, it doesn't matter who the Republicans trot out if the Democrats are just trotting out the same agenda with a better vibe.
This is deep. This is so powerful, family. Thank you all for joining us. If you're watching us live now, if you're watching us, I know y'all, this is early for us, but I was pleased to do it this morning. Those of you that are watching now and those that will watch later, those that will watch the clips on other platforms later, we are with the illustrious Dr. Melina Abdullah. She was independent running presidential VP with Dr. Cornel West for this past election. Dear family, she's with us today. And boy, she's breaking it down. We've already briefly talked about AIPAC to reparations to Kamala Harris, and the fact that our sister here is from Oakland and went to Howard University, and that's little talked about. She's a Black woman, and nobody is really discussing this particular one. So I am interested in talking to you now. For those of you that are wondering, well, Vicki, the election is over, why do this now? I believe that true power and even the effect that the Black grassroots had on this past election, and even the previous ones, has everything to do with the years and the environment, and even organizing work like yourself from the folks that are actually on the ground over time. And so now it's culminated into this moment to where the powers, as I call them, that shouldn't be, are seeing the effect of what's happening now. Dr. Abdullah, they mocked us, they laughed at us, they wanted to know why the folks like Vicki Dillard, who uses a laptop and a cell phone to use social media platforms to reach folks, what difference does that make? I brought up the importance of your voice and these attempts by the political parties to silence and to stop your message and your voice, you know, because the current press secretary still has me blocked on a couple of her personal platforms, Kareem Jean-Pierre. Some of your publications, even like Essence Magazine and The Griot, and some of your other celebrities and others still have me blocked or came against me on some of the other social media platforms. I've had actual calls and messages from folks that are with CNN or MSNBC upset about something that I've said. I had the former The View host, the daughter of a war criminal, Meghan McCain, blocked me after I defended Tamika Mallory, after they completely just, oh Lord, humiliated her when she went on there and silenced her. And a part of the reason why I defended Tamika, and she ended up blocking me later, but one of the reasons I defended her.
Tamika blocked you? Tamika
oh
Lord, okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I've been very open about it because she's someone that I actually was totally inspired by many years ago, have privately reached out to, didn't intentionally go after and silent about a lot of the antics that she was involved in, and made it clear that I was not making a personal attack against her, but it has to do with some of the positions, and apparently that was not received well, even though I personally reached out to her for us to, stand together, even though we can agree to disagree in the public. And, it is what it is. But I'm bringing that up because one of the reasons I defended her, it had to do with the fact that some elements of the Zionist Jewish group, this was years ago, are the ones that helped to stop some of her speaking engagements.
That's right.
Came after her, even for attending an event that Minister Farrakhan was at some years ago. And she spends a lot of time talking about how she differs from him on a lot of stuff. So it wasn't like, she's, running around, as a part of the Nation of Islam and a MGT or anything like that. But they still went after her. And so I had to put Meghan McCain in her place as a daughter of a war criminal and stuff. And so I guess Tamika was offended with me. I don't know, whatever behind that. And then the young lady blocked me. So I bring up the times that these, high profile entities or persons blocked me, because I was making the point to them over the years, Dr. Abdullah, that I don't care about you blocking little Vicki. That's not about me. But you know, I'm speaking from as a voice for the Black grassroots. So you're actually blocking their voices. You're trying to block what they're saying. You're trying to stop, prevent, frustrate, and for what it is they stand for. But they played themselves, did they not, in this last election after they told us that they had this on lock? Y'all just go shut up, sit down, and follow our lead and watch us. And then we watched the disaster. What are your thoughts about all that? It was some different moving parts to what I just said there. But I had AIPAC on my list. You brought them up, and feel free to go further on AIPAC. I just want to say really quick, parenthetically, you know, that before AIPAC, they have a very long history, and some of their history is spying on Black civil rights activists years ago. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. So we have to be very clear that what's happening, and I know that sometimes there's Black folks who go, why do we care what's happening in Palestine? Right? Why do we care? First of all, let me say, as a mother and a human being in this world,
yes,
100,000 people at least
have
been killed in the last year.
Say that number again, because they still talking about 40-something thousand.
Well, there's been 50,000 bodies discovered.
Yes.
But we have to remember that the bombings, most of the bodies are under the rubble.
Exactly.
So there's at least 100,000 dead in Gaza and in Palestine. 100,000 people killed. And I know it's been wiped from media. Don't allow them to wipe it. Don't allow them to leave us unfeeling. Don't allow them to divorce us from our spirits that bring tears. You know, when we see these babies, you know, who've not just been killed, and we're talking about 100,000 people killed, but how many children are orphaned?
Yes.
How many children? This is an entire nation of people who've been traumatized beyond measure, right? I talk about this one clip that I saw of this 9-year-old child whose hair was completely white from the trauma. Just
wow.
These children who are now parents to their younger siblings at 7, 8, 9 years old, right?
Yeah.
So AIPAC is the American Israeli Political Action Committee. We got to remember that what's happening, what the Israeli occupation forces, some of them say they're defense forces. They are not defense forces. They're occupation forces, right? What the Israeli occupation forces and the Israeli government and Netanyahu are doing is what they're doing. We have to understand that we are complicit. We are complicit. The United States government is funding it and enabling it.
Yes.
Those trillions of dollars that are going to the Pentagon are being used to send arms to Israel. To carry out this genocide. AIPAC, their interest is in really siphoning away U.S. tax dollars from the things we actually need. We need housing.
Yes.
We need mental health resources. We need education.
Yes,
we need all of these things for our people.
Yes.
They are siphoning away those dollars, putting them into unaccounted for Pentagon budgets. Using it to fund disgusting, devilish, evil genocide in Palestine.
Yes.
So AIPAC advances the candidates and funds the candidates that they know will advance their agenda. They've also taken part. There's very few, but there are some really beautiful, brilliant, principled leaders in government who have decided, you know, I'm going to be a policymaker so I can stand for the people. My favorite one, who is my sister from another mister who I love, like with my whole heart, is Cori Bush. Cori Bush is still a member of Congress from St. Louis. She comes from organizing. Met her on the streets in Ferguson. Sister Cori is a mama. She's a healthcare worker. She was unhoused herself for a while, living in her car. She is, our mothers and grandmothers used to say, you got to know not just who you are, but whose you are, right?
Right.
Cori Bush belongs to the people. AIPAC, because Cori Bush says Black people and Palestinians, because she was in Ferguson. She remembers when the Palestinians came. So people ask, why you invest in all of this in Palestine? Because it's right. But also Palestinians have always stood with Black people. So let's not get it twisted. That when we were on the streets in Ferguson, it was the Palestinians who came and said, look, they tear gassing y'all. That's what they did to us in Palestine. This is how you survive tear gas. Taught us to pour milk in our eyes. Taught us that the purpose of a keffiyeh is not just to put something around your neck, but to put something around your face when they hit you with them canisters, right? And so Cori has refused to betray who she is. And so AIPAC primaried her. They ran a candidate against her, spent, I believe it was $19 million on a candidate to unseat her in the Democratic primary. They also primaried Jamal Bowman in New York, got him out. They attempted to primary Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. They've come after pretty much any candidate who dares to stand for the people. And by stand for the people, I don't just mean say end the genocide and the occupation, free Palestine. I also mean that they are threatened by people who say real reparations now. Cori Bush had a real reparations bill, right? Anybody who says that we are unapologetically Black, AIPAC attempts to primary. And so that's who AIPAC is. AIPAC also is tied to all of these other Zionist groups that try to put down, and Sister Vicki, I know I'm talking a long time, but I want to just link it back to the question.
Yes, please.
Grassroots organizing. So AIPAC is the political action committee, but there are other Zionist arms that attack the grassroots organizing. And I think one of the most important things that you've said is that we have voting, and that was important. But what we do now is just as important. And you said grassroots organizing.
Yes.
That's absolutely the answer. Yes. Grassroots organizing. The Zionists are also trying to put down grassroots organizers.
This is important. This is important that you're making this connection. This is important.
Yes. So we're watching as we think about the uprisings on college campuses.
Right.
We're watching Zionist groups physically attack our children who are overwhelmingly, this is not talked about, but Black people are overrepresented on those front lines. My child was one of the ones who was camped out, right?
Wow. They
are physically attacking us. They are calling police in on us. There's a sister who you should know, Tiffany Willoughby Herard, Dr. Tiffany Willoughby Herard, who's one of our most brilliant minds. She's a professor of African American studies at UC Irvine. And you might remember the video that went viral late last spring when there was an uprising, there was an encampment at UC Irvine, and Sister Tiffany did what we as educators should do. She stood with her students. And Sister Tiffany, who is my friend and comrade, and I love her, she's a devout Christian and a mama of two beautiful boys. And she stood with her students and then got on her knees and began to pray because police had been called in on them. While this beautiful, proud, brilliant Black woman was on her knees praying, a tenured professor, the former president of the National Conference of Black Political Scientists, published author. While she was on her knees praying, the police came in and beat her until she was black and blue. And then they carried her out, arrested her, and Dr. Tiffany Willoughby Herrard is facing charges.
Wow.
She has had Zionists, and I see in the chat the ADL absolutely is involved. She has been doxxed. They put a truck on her campus with her photo and her personal information.
Wow.
People have come to her house. And this is what Zionists are doing, not just to those who hold elected office, but to those who dare to stand up and say, we demand freedom for our people, including Dr. Tiffany Willoughby Herrard. There's a pastor in Ohio, Pastor Evan Regi Bunch, who was just charged. We have lots of organizers and students all around the country who are being charged and prosecuted, and they're coming for organizations as well, including Black Lives Matter Grassroots, trying to make sure that these foundations don't fund us. They're drowning us out of mainstream media because they want to advance their agenda, not a freedom agenda.
This is deep. Family, for those of you that are just tuning in, I am Vicki Dillard here at VickiDillard.tv. I am interviewing our dear sister, Dr. Melina Abdullah. She was VP running mate along with Dr. Cornel West for the Independent Party for presidency. She is giving us details, the lawfare that the Democrat Party used. We've been discussing reparations. We've been discussing Zionists that are working to obstruct and silence, prevent, frustrating for the efforts of Black grassroots organizations. She's connecting the dots geopolitically for us, also with what's happening amongst the Palestinians, which is obviously an absolute travesty and quite diabolical. We in these United States of America know that all too well. As we move forward, family, I want you all to know that in the chat, I believe it's pinned. Oh, it is here too. Dear family, you all know that the powers that shouldn't be like to have demonetized me in the past on other platforms I've been on, snatched down certain videos. And this was long before the so-called October 7th fight and so forth. So just being a Black voice for righteousness. Those of us that have been in these spaces for a long time, Black folks, we know that they've silenced us and tried to do a lot of other stuff against us. So I'm going to have a conversation this Sunday for free to the public this Sunday, November 24th, where this is me, of course, exposing the dark energies that were used in the presidential campaign, specifically the Trump and Harris campaigns. And we're going to be talking about the true prophecy of the dry bones army rising. I'm going to talk about that, and I promise you I'm going to break it down in a way that you haven't heard before. Some of the details of this, Dr. Melina, you didn't know about this. I have to talk about offline, because when you go too far with some of these topics, you know, some of these platforms can't quite handle that. So I always have to do stuff like this offline so that I can speak straight words. So family, get your seat today for that. Some of the stuff that she and I are briefly talking about, I'm going to be going into great detail about. I'm talking politically, geopolitically, but also spiritually, those energies and forces. And we're going to be talking about solutions and what we can do about it. And just hint, our spiritual power is that's going to cause us to prevail in all things. You don't want to miss this. This is not a religious group. I don't care what your background is. The principles that I teach about are universal in nature. So be sure to click the link or go to my website at VickiPlanet.com. Enough of that for now. Dr. Abdullah, I want to talk briefly why was reparations a part of your you and Dr. West's campaign? I believe there's not only is a physical debt, money debt, land debt that the United States owes, but I believe that there's some spiritual debt, which I believe is another reason why we're heaping so much around the world, because you can't have your life force, which are our taxpayer dollars, spread around the world, and then there's suffering and genocide and theft and all that kind of stuff compounded on top of the genocide and the murder in these United States of America. There's a spiritual thing that's going on there. and that compounds. I talked a bit about that. I had the privilege of being with my brother, Dr. Tariq Nasheed, and some other Black grassroots voices in Washington, D.C. this past June. We did a reparations rally. Thousands were there just down the street from D.C., the White House, rather, just down the street from the White House. And it was interesting, some of the pushback that we got. Of course, this is not our brother's first time doing something like this, but it was very interesting. And I talked specifically about that spiritual debt as well that's connected to a lot of this. And I also talked about the fact that some of the very forces that right now, I'm sure probably you heard about this. I've talked about this before. I've done broadcasts on this before a long time ago, where I talked about how the House passed a bill, an anti-Semitic bill, anti-Semitism bill, using the definition from an international organization that even goes down to Easter stories. That if you even deny how your Bible is written, that the Jewish folks that's written in Scripture actually crucified Jesus, if you believe that particular story as it's written in Scripture, that's anti-Semitic. Well, we've seen efforts recently now from this Senate leader Schumer. He's really, before Trump takes office, I guess he's trying to hurry up and push through this anti-Semitism bill. I know I've said a lot in that one sentence, but feel free to comment on that as you see fit concerning in terms of reparations, but also the fact that they are pushing for a foreign nation, the interest of a foreign nation, legislation that doesn't even exist for those of us who are the true founding mothers and fathers of this country. Those of us who actually built America, we don't have these protections. And so I'm confused. I'm really confused.
Right. Right. And I'll just say, I want to talk about that a bit, that we have to remember that opposing Zionism is not anti-Semitism.
Say that again.
Zionism is not anti-Semitism.
Yes.
I'm anti-genocide.
Yes.
I am anti-occupation, right?
Yes.
That is not anti-Semitism. And so it's really important that we lift it up. And that they can't make everything, it shouldn't be that they get to hide behind this notion that if you are critical of the state of Israel, that's somehow anti-Semitic.
Well said.
I also, as I walked through the halls of Congress, it's really interesting to me that some of these congressional offices actually have Israeli flags outside of their offices. And it was striking to me that if you are a representative of the United States, that you could have another nation's flag, sitting outside your office. That it seems, this may be too big a word, but it seems treasonous.
Yes.
That if you were elected to represent the United States, but the flag outside your office is Israeli, you talked about a foreign government. That's a foreign government's flag that you have outside your office. Reparations. So when you ask about reparations, there is the basic international legal principle of reparations. Reparations is not a new concept. It is grounded in international law, right? Dating back centuries, right? That when people are harmed, there is an international legal principle that repair has to take place as much as possible. I never heard of the idea of spiritual reparations, but that's something that you're making me grapple with, so I appreciate that. I do believe that reparations has to start with a check.
Absolutely.
And I think that there is spiritual energy in those resources, right?
Yes.
We got to be straight up. And I think Randall Robinson, I always, when people say, what do I start to read when I read about reparations? Just start with the debt, because it's straight up, read the debt. The Debt is like the classic book by our revered elder and ancestor, Randall Robinson. Look, they stole our ancestors' wealth and they still got it.
That's right. That's right.
That's it. I live in the state of California where Gavin Newsom, the governor here,
Lord.
trotted himself out and gave an apology as he vetoed and manipulated to get our reparations bills out, our
Yes.
real reparations bills out. We had 3 bills that were real reparations.
I covered
One,
all of them.
establishing
Yes.
a freedmen's agency. 2, to fund reparations. And 3, to return the stolen land of Black people.
Yes.
Right? This man manipulated the the California Legislative Black Caucus
Yes.
to withdraw their own damn bills.
Come on. But their names on it. Some of them had their names on it. I discussed that. Yes. Yes.
They pulled back their own bills.
Their own bills.
That was because of a call from this white man, Gavin Newsom.
Come on.
Right? This and white supremacist governor, right? One of these liberal white supremacists.
Right.
You got to remember, white supremacists don't always wear white sheets or red caps.
That's right.
So he manipulated the congressional California Legislative Black Caucus to pull back 2 of their own bills. They still put the land bill forward. This man vetoed that bill.
Listen, y'all.
Vetoed that bill. At the same time, this fool wants to trot himself out and issue an apology for slavery.
Come on.
I'm sorry. Keep your damn apology.
Come on now.
Run me my check.
Run me my check.
I don't want you. Think about how insincere, and this is when you talked about spiritual energy.
Yeah.
Right? How insincere is it when you are fake apologizing?
Come on.
When you got our stolen land and stolen wealth, you don't get to, he's holding on. They're holding on to the money that our ancestors earned.
Come on.
And they want to issue apologies. Keep your apology.
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
Dr. West and I, reparations was core to our policy pillars.
Okay.
We believe in, and you talked about multiple forms of reparations. Absolutely multiple forms of reparations. But those reparations begin with a check for the debt that's owed our ancestors, which built, this country is built on the stolen land of indigenous people.
Come on.
And maybe at some other time, we could talk about that.
Yeah.
Because now all these liberal spaces, they do these land acknowledgements while they sitting on stolen indigenous land.
Come on.
Give the land back.
Give the land back. Please don't, I don't want to cut your wisdom. Please remember what you're going to say next, but I just wanted to clarify something. My position on reparations is money. When I said spiritual reparations, what I meant was that the United States continues to catch hell because there's a spiritual connection to the fact that because they haven't paid the money, because they haven't paid the reparations, there are also repercussions, spiritual repercussions for that as well. And I say that not only for the oppressed and the perpetrators of that crime and genocide and murder and terrorism, I said that for our own people. So I wanted to be clear. I push money here. I push that first. I'm a spiritual teacher, but I throw the spiritual element out too. And I'm gonna tell you why I do that for our people. Really quick, please don't lose your point. I wanted to clarify because I don't want nobody thinking, Vicki is money. I don't care if you are, I want that to be first. No, money, because money is a spirit. I believe in the money, check, money. I just throw that on in addition because we have some of our own Black looking people that's opposing reparations and allowing themselves to be the cover for white folks that don't want reparations. Just like when Clyburn some years ago came out before we were really pushing Democrat years ago, and of course that topic made it on the debate stage prior to that, and Obama came out and said he's against reparations and all that. Kucinich was the only one that said he's for it. Well, one of the things that when Clyburn came out this last time over recent years, he was saying how it was impossible for us to get reparations and stuff. And then some folks think that because they make, 6 figures now, they outright, so I don't need this handout. So I let folks know, silly, it's not about whether or not you are financially and fiscally in a position to pay your bills. I said they raped your mothers, they sodomized your fathers, they ate some of their body parts, they strung them up on trees here. There are multiple Calvaries here in these United States of America for that reason, the spiritual reason there, because they did that to your mom. And that's why we need to be demanding reparations, not just because you're able to pay your bills. Okay, so that's why I want to be real clear that this is another element that I bring up for those that claim that because they're business people or they work in corporate America or their checks are okay and this is a handout. I let them know, what can you imagine what their ancestors are feeling about them that's running around here and said we don't need reparations. That's not a big deal. Right now. So I was just throwing out that spiritual element. So I just wanted to be clear. I push money first, foremost, main thing, 99% of the time. The 1% is the additional stuff that I throw on there for folks that come out talking about that they make enough money and they don't need this handout. So that's what I was wanting to say. And that the United States, we're catching hell also all over the world. This is my spiritual belief. In addition, because they have not made right this with us. So that's the other. I just wanted to clarify that. So please take it further.
No. I felt you. I understood what you were saying. I just never grappled with the spiritual component of it before. So you're giving me something to carry back and go, yeah, there is a spiritual component to it. So absolutely, I feel you. Reparation starts with a check.
Yes, ma'am.
So just to tie this up, that this country again is built on the stolen land of indigenous people, right? By the stolen labor and lives of our African ancestors.
Come on.
Right? They owe us.
Yes.
They owe us. And so as you were talking about people who are doing fine, okay, I'm grateful that I, earn a livable wage. I'm not wealthy by any means. I'm a single mama of 3 kids, 2 of them are in college, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But I'm grateful that we have, it's cold here right now in California, right? It's 50 degrees. That's cold for us.
That's cold for you. Yes.
I'm grateful that I have a warm home, right? With heating that I can pay the bill on, right?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm grateful for that. And it doesn't mean they don't owe me a greater base.
Come
and
on.
we have to, we can talk about also the difference between doing okay and generational wealth.
Come on.
What we could be building, what we could have as a collective. And I think that this is the way also capitalism lies to us, because it makes us think we're supposed to only be worried about who we are individually and as individual families. But our stolen wealth as Black people is stolen collective wealth. What institutions could we be building?
That's good.
Right? What could we have in terms of, I taught last night and my students were talking about Black autonomous communities. If we had our reparations, we could have Black autonomous communities, right?
Yeah.
And so that is a debt that's owed to us. And it's something that Dr. West and I are very committed to struggling for spiritual reasons, as well as, economic justice reasons.
Yes.
And it's absolutely necessary for us to get to Black freedom. We absolutely have to have the kind of reparations that starts with a check and that also includes institutional transformations.
I love this. I cannot believe it. I already been talking for an hour, and I want to certainly respect your time, and I certainly appreciate you coming on. And I look forward in one way or another to connecting with you thereafter. If you don't mind, would you please talk to us about this Donald Trump element, this notion in general of the deep state, if you would? Again, you and I did not discuss this at all, this topic outside of this particular interview, but I want to you to briefly address that for us, and particularly with your background as an educator, as a professor, and a long-term one. I'm curious as to your thoughts about this, and the reason being is because the deep state, and for me, it's about that unseen hidden hand, mostly from unelected officials that are actually the driving force in the decision-making of this government. Obviously, they're the ones that I believe are responsible for all manner of injustices perpetuated throughout this country. and geopolitically around the world. They're the ones that are influencing our legislators, our lawmakers, and those that are supposed to speak on behalf of the people. But I wanted you to specifically talk about the deep state because, number one, it's a term that Donald Trump really threw around a lot, and I think that got him a lot of traction early on. But when I look at his history and his record, as already having the office of presidency, uh, he was supposed to drain the swamp allegedly. But a lot of the folks that he put in the highest positions were a part, in my opinion, of the deep state. And I believe that I'll say this quickly to some of my audience, because I always connect the dots, not just here, but also on another platform about international issues, because I think they're directly related to us, including the former Israeli consul lady, Miss Varner Shaw. She said some years ago, and she specifically invoked Black Lives Matter as well in this conversation, didn't know she was being recorded. This is before this October 7th incident, which is a fake date, in my opinion, because as you mentioned earlier, Israel, they're the occupiers. So occupiers don't get to decide, how somebody defends himself. That's my opinion on stuff. If somebody breaks into my home and I shoot you in the leg because you come to my bedroom, you don't get to. Well, you could have asked me nicely to leave. Can't we negotiate? No, you don't supposed to be here. It's illegal. I don't get to chit chat with you about none of how I deal with you illegally being on my property and my land. That's how I see them. But that's another story. But this former Israeli consul lady, years before this, specifically said, while she was being privately recorded, that the problem with Israel, she said the problem with the state of Israel are specifically Black American youth. So she mentioned Black Lives Matter also within this context, but she specifically said Black American youth are the problem for her country. And this was a part of also a documentary that was censored for a long time, and some of it finally came through. I think one of the Gray Zone guys was one of the ones that helped to get this information out some years ago. I've been talking about it nonstop on multiple platforms. A few years ago, I talked about it in the past year, and then I talked about it even recently, that Israel said this about Black American youth. We know that the IDF and Israeli forces, that some of our law enforcement folks go to Israel for training, and they come here to train our law enforcement folks. We know this thing about Israel, but Dr. Abdullah, no congressional person held a hearing, to my knowledge, on why their supposed ally in the alleged only democracy in the Middle East, which is West Asia, and really some parts of Africa, didn't hold a hearing on it. But we're holding all of these hearings on alleged anti-Semitism, might be, could be, what if. We want to prevent and bring in professors and other folks like that in to put down protests in their schools. But nobody held a hearing about our ally targeting a large segment of so-called Americans and saying that we are an enemy to their country. I don't know if you knew about that, but I would like your thoughts on that before, and then briefly, would you talk about the deep state and this hidden hand that's really running? And I think that you hit on some of that, even talking about AIPAC, but of course there are other elements as well, and how Donald Trump really used that. But Iran has a warrant out for his arrest for murdering their top military leadership while he was in office. Some of the other Middle Eastern countries, before he left, they put out a warrant for Donald Trump's arrest before he left. So he's doing some little dirty. He bragged about stealing Syrian oil, but this man is a hero. But he's still doing a lot of dirty stuff that people got a warrant out for his arrest for. Can you talk about that however you choose to do during this last few moments?
Sure, thank you. So I think that this point that you're making about the threat that not just Black young people, but Black people pose to the powers that be.
Yes.
Donald Trump wants to trot out a deep state as if he's not the deep state, right? As if, the people he's appointing aren't the so-called deep state, right?
Right.
You got to remember who he's connected with. And these cabinet appointments that he's making are absolutely devils, right? The devil has surrounded himself with more devils, right? And so it's important to understand that. But I think for us, we have exactly 2 months until they come into office, right?
Yeah.
Exactly 2 months. Not that we're safe right now,
Mm-hmm.
but when they come into office, all hell is good. And I'm choosing that term intentionally. All hell will break loose,
Yes.
especially on the backs of Black people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we understand that Black people have never simply submitted to our own oppression. Black people have been the moral compass of the world, and Black people are not going to just sit down and be quiet. It's why they're gearing up. You know, if you think about what they're saying, this attorney general appointment, Matt Gaetz, he's a child rapist, right? Why would they be trying to appoint a child rapist? Well, look at the agenda they're advancing. They want the Department of Justice to set their sights on Black organizers, Black protesters, Black activists. Donald Trump is even talking about deportations don't have to just include immigrant communities, right?
Wait a minute, say that again.
Deportations do not just have to include immigrant and migrant communities. If you think about the rhetoric is going to be followed up by policy. The rhetoric about if you don't like this country, you should get out, right? All of that, they're talking about rounding up Black Lives Matter, specifically Black Lives Matter organizers, and calling us treasonous for daring to challenge the police who kill our people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's not popular to talk about anymore, but I'm never going to stop talking about it because the police are still killing our people. Just, you know, a few weeks ago, this little boy, Rezan Shaheed, was just shot in the back by Michigan State Police in Flint, right? You probably never even heard his name because they're not talking about it. They're not talking about what they're actually doing to our people every single day, that 1,200 people are being killed by police in this country a year, right? And so what they're seeking to do is criminalize, and I don't mean lightweight criminalization.
Right.
I mean political prisoner status for those of us who dare to speak up. So it's important that we understand as we close that in the next 2 months, we got to be serious about our preparedness. And I talked to my students last night. I said, don't get caught in your house with no toilet paper, right? Like we got to prepare like we did for COVID. But preparedness also means having organizing homes where we know that we have a community of folks that protect one another, that love one another, that are completely unafraid, because that's the other thing they're trying to do, is to push us back on our heels so that we'll be so terrified that we don't speak up and protect ourselves and protect each other. We got to refuse to be terrified. We got to resist fear. Fear and faith cannot occupy the same space. I am faithful, and sister, I know we're just meeting, but I know you're faithful as well.
Yes.
And our ancestors relied on faith and, faith and work, right?
Yes.
Faith and work. So we got to have faith and we got to work and we got to know that we will win. I hate that Kamala Harris stole our chant, but our chant is when we fight, we win, right?
Come on.
But that's still true, even though she tried to steal it. When we fight, we win. We have faith that we will fight and win together. So please, we're encouraging everybody to find an organizing home. My organizing home is Black Lives Matter Grassroots. We are BLM Grassroots on all social media. Black folks everywhere are invited to join us. But if that's not your thing, find an organization and be really visionary and vigilant in what we build over this next 2 months, but also for the long haul.
This is so good. Well, you have been absolutely extraordinary. You hit on so many points. This is the type of broadcast that one must watch again and again because you drop so many jewels in such a short amount of time. Thank you so much for joining us. Me and my team will certainly be connected to you behind the scenes because, like I said, I went to Chicago for a Black town hall, an intimate town hall with actually some of the organizers on the ground, the ones that have been giving the politicians there that everlasting work, that have actually come up and written plans for bills to turn into legislation. I'm dealing with real people that are on the ground that have been inspired by my work that I got a chance to meet. And I'm looking forward to doing just that in other places. And so we'll be connecting behind the scenes, perhaps in some way. Inshallah, we'll be able to connect on that. But anyway, for California, you brought up so many amazing points. Thank you so very much. And again, I wanted to, for the very thing that you just shared, family, are you all paying attention to what she just talked to us about, organizing homes? I've done previous free webinars about turning our houses into a headquarters, and I'm always talking about physical and spiritual things that we do there that are the actual real places of power. And so when you came here and just said organizing homes, this leads right into it. So Dr. Abdullah, finally, so we're not powerless, you're telling us. We're not powerless, and there's something that we can do. I think you started it by saying what? People power. Is that right? As we end this?
That's right. That's right. People power. People power. And I don't mean just as individuals. I mean our power. One of the greatest powers we have as Black people is our sense of linked fate, our understanding that we rise and fall together. We will get free together. And so we have to, Kwame Ture always said, organize, organize, organize. So we organize, organize, organize. That means coming together, having organizing homes and moving forward collectively. So find your organizing home and double down on it.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for your beautiful insight. And I should have started the broadcast by, first of all, congratulating you, number one, for your run. And I believe that it was successful in many ways because it was just another voice in the race that was not elevated to the position that it should have been. But I'm telling you, that's how you came on my radar, even though, quote unquote, you all didn't, I mean, you didn't win in that sense. But I'm saying there are so many elements. And I think that over time, if we continue to do and stand for those important things, such as reparations and justice around the world, that is going to make a difference in the long haul. And I think we're seeing that certainly now the Democratic Party is feeling that in more ways than one. And certainly the Republican Party, nobody is off limits when it comes down to this kind of stuff in our demand for justice. So thank you so much for joining us today, family. I look forward to seeing you all as I go further in my teaching this Sunday about the dark energy forces, the occult forces that were used in both the Kamala campaign and Trump campaign. And I'm going to be talking about the true prophetic prophecy, the prophecy about the Dry Bones Army rising and what that means ancestrally, and how we can activate those energies for us to wield real power on earth as it is in the ethers. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. Family, share this broadcast. The link for Sunday, by the way, for those that are asking, the link for Sunday's free webinar is pinned above. Or go to my website at VickiPlanet.com. That's VICKI Planet.com. Oh, how can they follow you? Real quick. I know I said we're getting off, but give us your contact information, please.
I'm at Doc Melly Mel on all social media, DOCMELLYMEL on all social media. And they can follow BLM Grassroots on all social media as well.
Okay. Oh, good. My team just put it back up again. I was putting it up here and there because I actually, be honest, I was looking for you for a minute and finally found it. So it was on the DOC.Melly-Mel. Got it. I found it later, but we're here. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, sister.
It's a privilege. It's a privilege. Thank you, family, for tuning in. Share the broadcast, and I can't wait to see you again.